Yes, children. So today we are going to discuss about the conservation of biodiversity and deforestation and afforestation. So what is meant by deforestation and what is meant by afforestation? So firstly, we'll discuss what is conservation of biodiversity. So conservation of biodiversity is nothing but, just give me 1 second, children. I'll admit everyone. They're waiting here. Okay. Yes. Amit and Anna, are you able to hear me now? Switch on your camera so that I can see you all. Okay, children. We'll start with the lesson conservation of biodiversity. So, what is conservation? Conservation is nothing but restoring, protecting, and uh, just taking care of that, taking care of the things which are there around us, like the trees and the environment, animals, and the organisms. So we have to preserve them, we have to take care of them, we have to protect them in order to uh, prevent the loss of the biodiversity. Biodiversity is the biological diversity which involves restoring, protecting, conserving, and enhancing the variety of life in an area. Is called as conservation of biodiversity. So you can underline this, the main point over here in your course book, page number 9, children. Conserving biological diversity involves restoring, protecting, conserving, and enhancing the variety of life in an area. So what happens with this? So the results are the distribution of species and communities that provide continued existence for ecological functioning of the ecosystem. So this helps in preserving the species, in providing the continuance of existence. This helps in animals to stay safe in a particular area without a fear of their extinction. We have to just build sanctuaries. So a sanctuary is a place where we can preserve a particular species in order to uh, fear of losing them. So there are different types of conservations. If we see, the types of conservations are in-suit conservation and ex-suit conservation. So what are these in-suit conservation and ex-suit conservation? We'll further discuss in this lesson. So the in-suit conservation is the type of conservation which includes conservation of plants. So if we see this, there are different procedures to just store a particular species, to store it for the future in order to prevent the extinction. There are seed banks, gene bank, pollen bank, DNA bank, so where all the species are being preserved. So this is a gene bank. Here you can see the picture. There are so many species which are being kept preserved. Do you know what is a gene bank or pollen bank, children? Yes, anyone can tell me? Once again, I'll just unmute you. Yes, can you tell me? Why? What is the use of this? Why we have to, what is the use of this gene bank or the pollen bank? What are these? Yes, Dhruv, can you tell me?
Ma'am, I don't know, ma'am.
Yes, anyone from you? Ritvika? Akshara?
Ma'am, I have
Yes.
no idea, ma'am.
Okay, that's fine. So this gene bank is useful. Just one second. I'll admit. Okay. So these banks. So what is a bank? A bank is where you can preserve your money, isn't it? You keep your money in the bank. In the same way, we preserve the species genes. Genes. Where are these genes present? Inside our cells, inside our body, isn't it? You all have learned about it. So these genes can be preserved by a particular maintaining particular conditions. So these genes of species like white tiger is being extinct, or the species which are going to extinct, so we have to preserve the genes in order to gain the different species in order to uh,
banks are an insurance. The international germplasm banks are an insurance policy for agricultural development for today and into the future. Just as crops depend on humanity or farmers to reproduce themselves, humanity equally depends on crops to nourish itself and to feed its population.
What we do now with gene banks in the world is we preserve all this diversity, and it's preserved for use.
To enable agriculture to remain sustainable into the future. Our collections hold these materials for humanity.
Essentially in trust for the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, so they're not ours. They belong to the people of the world.
To be used by anyone who's involved in crop improvement, whether that be a breeding company or a national program, or even by farmers or by local breeders.
That's our mandate. We don't want to just collect and just sit on it. We're not a museum. When the trust was first formed, its goal was to be able to support these gene banks the way they needed to be supported so that we didn't lose this valuable resource.
It's quite difficult to justify keeping gene banks to normal donors.
To conserve plant genetic resources or varieties requires a very long time horizon.
This is where I think our major challenge is from a funding standpoint.
Normal donors want to donate.
Gene banking. Gene banking is a breeding concept being adopted for years by airbase ugbo gamefowl technology. The idea is to pool genes of certain phenotypes together with corresponding fighting traits. Individuals from the different pools may be used to infuse particular traits into a bloodline, blend with the other bloodlines, or upgrade bloodlines. All our gene banks aim for an all-around ability, meaning the individuals in the pool should not possess any marked weakness. However, each pool has its own strongest point. For example, one pool's strongest point is speed, while another pool's strongest point is the tendency to be smart, while another has power as its strong point. Thus, every individual that will contribute to a particular pool must possess an excellent degree, the pool's strong point. However, it must also possess passing grades in most of the other traits, with cut and gain as always a must. What we do is to periodically introduce to each pool individuals that possess the desired strong point, without sacrificing all-around ability. We believe we can only do this by introducing only male individuals to the pool, never a female. The reason is obvious: we can spar fight the male, and see that it possesses the desired primary trait, something we cannot do with the female. Also, you can more accurately assess a broodcock's true value than a hen's in just a season of breeding, because you can mate a broodcock to as many as 10 hens at a time, allowing for more offspring sampling, diversity, and variety. Gene banking is one idea that works in gamefowl breeding. When you repeatedly put in a line certain desirable traits, then you are banking or collecting those traits in the said line or gene pool. In the process, you are enhancing said traits. These traits become fixed in the respective pools. When you combine two individual pools or bank of genes to set another bloodline or cross, then you are trying to avail of complementarity by gene variations. This is how we make a seed fowl. We have seed fowl for speed, seed fowl for power, seed fowl for smarts. Each of these lines can be fought pure by itself. Because although each is heavy on a particular fighting trait, each also receives passing grades in the important aspects of fighting, meaning no marked weaknesses. So next time you scout around for breeding materials, ask for a seed fowl of desirable
One second. So we can preserve a good quality, like the quality which you have seen, like the ability to power, the ability of possessing more power, more resistance towards the diseases. So these will be the quality in some species. So taking the genes from a particular species which have good qualities, taking out the genes from them and inserting these uh, genetic material in those which are very weak, which don't show any such type of qualities, we can insert the higher quality genes in them, and we can get a very much showing all the qualities in that breed. We can get a very good breed. So by using this gene banking, we can preserve the genes even for the future sake also. When we are extinct with these animals, when we can't find these, we can even use these genes which are stored in the gene banking. I hope you've understood with this. I'll just record it. Okay, just 1 second.
Billion by the 2050s. To feed all these people, more food will be needed. To this end, using diverse genetic resources is essential. Unfortunately, due to global warming, disorganized development, and large-scale natural disasters, our irreplaceable genetic resources are disappearing daily. Our responsibility is to protect the rich natural world and precious genetic resources we inherited from our ancestors and pass them on to future generations. We need to use these genetic resources effectively to secure stable food supply. The Gene Bank project is a research activity that collects, preserves, and provides diverse genetic resources for the future. In 1985, Japan's Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry, and Fisheries started the Gene Bank project. In 1988, the Gene Bank facility was built in Tsukuba Science City. NARO conducts the Gene Bank project for the genetic resources of plants, microorganisms, and animals. NARO conserves diverse genetic resources by connecting a network of stakeholder organizations nationwide. Crops with various kinds of characteristics, including over long years, and they also collect.
Just 1 second, children. I'll just. I'll just increase its quality.
Over Japan after the fall harvest.
Yeah. Yes, tell me.